Amy's ministry flows from her own journey with Christ and includes advocating for abuse survivors, leading worship in multi-ethnic churches, anti-racism activism, care for those who are houseless, speaking in a variety of academic and ecclesial contexts, supporting patients with craniofacial anomalies, and finding creative ways to engage and honor Native American traditions. So we turn it over to you, Amy.
Thank you. It's so good to be with you all. Ya'ate abina. Ya'ate, we greet you in Navajo. That means it kind of has some overlap with the word shalom, that all is well with me, and I hope all is well with you and your clan as well. So I greet you, Ya'ate abina. You want to say Ya'ate with me?
Ya'ate.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this morning, I'd like to begin with an acknowledgement of the relationship between the land where this symposium is taking place here at North Park Theological Seminary and the people who have and continue to call this their home. These are the traditional homelands of the Anishinaabe, also known as the Council of the Three Fires, which includes the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples, as well as many other Native peoples, such as the Peoria, the Muscogee, the Ho-Chunk, the Kickapoo, and the Miami. In what was dispersed to you before the seminar, we have this eagle poem. I don't want to take the time to read it here, but I just highlight it for you. I'd love for you to take it outside and appreciate it fully in creation. It's written by Joy Harjo, who's a Muskogee. She's the first Native American U.S. Poet Laureate that we've had. So I commend that to you. Origin stories not only establish a baseline for our self-awareness and our concept of the divine, but they also establish the foundation of our disposition with all creation. Narratives of creation are therefore not exclusively tales of how the cosmos began, but these narratives set the trajectory for self-understanding and our sense of duty to the other created, animate and inanimate alike. While the Judeo-Christian tradition locates its creation story in Genesis 1:2, First Nations peoples have numerous stories of the beginning of the world, ranging from the Hopi's tale of the Spider Woman, the Algonquin supreme spirit Gloskop, who created rock elves, or the Osage legend of the Snail Man and the Beaver Maid, just to name a few. Though First Nations origin stories vary, they share common themes of respect for all life forms and acknowledgement of humanity's resilience and reliance on nature. As we will see, both Genesis 1:2 and the First Nations myth of the Earth Diver creation story inform us about our connection to the cosmos and encourage us to live in harmony with nature. This paper offers a comparative analysis of Genesis 1:2 origin story with the Native American Sky Woman Earth Diver origin story. As we consider both retellings of our beginnings, we will observe points of continuity and dissimilarity with a view of their impact on our eco-ethical posture towards all of creation. We'll begin with one that I'm familiar with from my background. It's a Oneida Nation creation story as told by Keller George of the Wolf Clan. And this is just an excerpt of what was told to him by his grandmother. Long, long ago, the earth was deep beneath the water. There was a great darkness because no moon, sun, or stars shone. The only creatures living in this dark world were water animals such as the beaver, the muskrat, the duck, and the loon. Far above the water-covered earth was the land of happy spirits, where the Great Spirit dwelled. In the center of the upper realm was a giant apple tree with roots that sank deep into the ground. One day, the Great Spirit pulled the tree up from its roots, creating a pit in the ground. And the Great Spirit called to his daughter, who lived in this upper world. He commanded her to look into the pit, and the woman did as she was told and peered toward the hole. In the distance, she saw the lower world covered by water and clouds. The Great Spirit spoke to his daughter, telling her to go into the world of darkness. He then tenderly picked her up and dropped her into the hole. The woman, who would be called Sky Woman, by those who watched her fall, began to slowly float downward. As Sky Woman continued her descent, the water animals looked up. Far above them, they saw a great light that was Sky Woman. The beaver told the others that they must find a dry place for her to rest upon. The beaver plunged deep beneath the water in search of earth. He was unsuccessful. After a time, his dead body surfaced to the top of the water. The loon was the next creature to try to find some earth. He too was unsuccessful, and many others tried, but each animal failed, and at last the muskrat said he would try. But when his dead body floated to the top, his claws were clenched tight. The others opened his claws and found a little bit of earth. The water animals summoned a great turtle and patted the earth upon its back. And once the turtle grew and grew, as did the amount of earth, this earth became North America, a great island, what we would call Turtle Island. During all this time, Sky Woman continued her fall. The leader of the swans grew concerned as Sky Woman's approach grew imminent. He gathered a flock of swans that flew upward and allowed Sky Woman to rest upon their back. With great care, they placed her upon the newly formed earth. Soon after her arrival, Sky Woman gave birth to twins. The firstborn became known as the Good Spirit. The other twin caused his mother so much pain that she died during his birth. He became known as the Evil Spirit. The Good Spirit took his mother's head and hung it in the sky, and it became the sun. The Good Spirit also fashioned the stars and the moon from his mother's body, and he buried the remaining parts of Sky Woman upon the earth. Thus, living things may always find nourishment from the soil which springs from Mother Earth. While the Good Spirit provided light, the Evil Spirit created darkness. The Good Spirit created many good things, but each time his brother would attempt to undo his good work. After the Good Spirit completed the earth, he created man out of red clay, placing man
about how we should live. That everyone has both a good heart and a bad heart. Regardless of how good a man is, he still possesses some evil. The reverse is also true. For however evil a man may be, he still has some good qualities. No man is perfect. That is a portion of the Sky Woman tale. Since we are familiar with the creation story in Genesis 1-2, I will simply summarize a few of the key components that directly relate to our comparative cosmological study and inform human participation in the natural world as understood in Judeo-Christian interpretations of Genesis 1-2. God created the totality of the cosmos and everything in it, living and non-living, in a process that in some way reflects a 6-day period followed by a day of rest. The creative endeavor began instilling order from chaos, progressively adding more elements to Earth. The creation story climaxes with the crafting of man in the image of God, followed by the forming of woman from his side. Every aspect of creation was designed as a hospitable dwelling for humanity, who was given the divine right to kabosh, to subjugate, as well as for gods and rule the land, plant, trees, flocks, animals, and birds. As we begin comparing the elements of continuity between these two stories, several similarities come to bear on our disposition towards the environment. First, both Genesis 1-2 and this earth diver narrative recognizes the initiation of invisible divine spiritualization project. Though the God of the Old Testament has a more sustained and active participation in the creation world, both the Great Spirit, who may also be called Manitou or Wakatonka, and Yahweh Elohim, instigate the beginning of a new habitat for humanity, animals, and all of nature to dwell together peacefully. With this in mind, both cosmologies offer a perspective that the existence of humanity, Mother Earth, and all of her inhabitants were divinely conceived of, desired, and created. Second, the earth did not begin with the separation of water and land as we now experience. In both stories, the explanation for the distinction of land from sea occurred after the beginning of the earth. This recognition of the pre-existent earth in a different form than we presently encounter reminds us of the fluidity of the environment and cosmos at large. Further, we can see this as a call to be responsible eco-ethically with all created, since the planet's condition is dynamic. Likewise, this shared story element of ecological change invites us to a place of gratitude for the gracious dwelling we currently inhabit. Mother Earth has not always been hospitable to humanity, flora, and fauna, and is not guaranteed to remain so. Third, in both traditions, land is not a commodity to be owned. The Garden of Eden in Genesis is established for humanity's flourishing. There's no sense that Adam and Eve owned the Garden of Eden, as we now understand the concept of land ownership. Yet other biblical texts offer perspectives on land ownership that lie in tension, as numerous passages depict the God of Israel giving land to God's people as a perpetual possession, while other passages remind God's people that all of the land belongs to God. I have those passages listed here. However, based exclusively on the creation story in Genesis 1-2, the biblical text finds commonality in Native American creation stories, which do not support the concept of humans owning and therefore having autonomy over land. Elder Stan McKay is the first Aboriginal leader in the United Church of Canada, and he addresses this issue by saying, "It follows that if the creatures and creation are interdependent, then it is not faithful to speak of ownership. Life is understood as a gift, and it makes no sense to claim ownership of any part of creation." The application of humanity living in a way that acknowledges entails a posture of humility and thoughtfulness, that this place is not exclusively our own. Further, it cultivates a desire to conserve the resources that we have inherited in order to preserve nature's gifts for future generations. Fourth, another element of continuity between the two creation traditions is nature as the location of sacred space. The Genesis 1-2 account affirms the sacredness of dwelling in God's presence and communing with God, as our first ancestors walked through the beauty of the Garden of Eden. To be in God's presence in Genesis 1-2 was to be in humanity's natural state, naked, outside among the dirt, snails, oak trees, and fragrant sage, and stepping alongside the divine. Connection with the land was engagement with the divine. Conversely, when sin entered, we observe in the biblical text how disconnecting with the land is a disruption with people's religious experience. In the tale of the Sky Woman, the Great Spirit actively engaged the natural world. The good spirit and the evil spirit brothers, they interacted with the plants, animals, and humanity on Turtle Island. In both cosmologies, land is one of the sacred spaces where divine revelation first. As an aside, later biblical texts will provide blueprints for assembling places of worship, such as the tabernacle and the temple that we've already discussed this morning, centering the communal sacred space around a building. This tradition continues to evolve in both Jewish and Christian communities, so much so that the focal point of sacred places now resides in constructed and contained space. Jace Weaver reflects on the difference between manufactured places of worship and the revelation of nature, as he asserts that one thinks of the magnificence of the Cathedral of Chartres or Gaudi's Sagrada Familia. Such structures, which we see here, were constructed to the glory of God. They were meant to inspire awe. They may be conducive for prayer or to contemplative reflection, but to call these edifices revelatory in and of themselves is to glory and glorify the works of human hands. Certainly, Jewish and Christian faiths affirm the sacredness of nature, but the shift of the majority of sacred places to human-made edifices depart from the organic communion with God in the Garden of Eden and the general revelation accessible through creation. Conversely, Native American traditions continue to affirm Mother Earth and all of the creatives as the primary place of sacred space. Across individual tribes and spiritual forces and ceremonial rituals, they are all inextricably connections to distinct specific territories. As sacred space relates to land rootedness and ongoing connection with ancestors, Vine Gloria Jr. argues, quote, their sacredness does not depend on human occupancy, but on the stories that describe the revelation that enables human beings to experience the holiness there. End quote. There are numerous points of continuity between these creation stories. I couldn't cover them all in this piece, but we'll now just pivot and look at a few of the dissimilarities. First, the Earth Diver creation tradition, and more broadly, all Native American creation traditions, establishes humanity and creation in a reciprocal relationship, whereas the biblical account places humanity over creation. The divine mandate in Genesis assigns a hierarchical relationship in which humanity is charged with benevolent domain over the rest of the created order. However, in Native American creationists, such as the skyborn that we looked at this morning, animals participate in the creative process, and across tribal traditions are believed to be in closer proximity to the Great Spirit, warranting our respect. Further, rather than viewing animals as below humanity, like in the Genesis story, most Native American traditions hold animals in high esteem because they teach us, and also because they are our elders, having been created first. As Shepherd Crutch highlights, quote, their origin stories and histories tell about long ago eras when significant boundaries between humans and animals were absent, end quote. In addition to the cultural mandate, related to the cultural mandate in Genesis 1:28, another dimension of this vertical relationship of humanity above creation occurs when Adam names the animals. On the one hand, naming may indicate comes curiosity and discernment of the unique qualities of each animal as he considered their name. On the other hand, many ancient Near Eastern cultures categorize the ability to name another as a means of conveying power and authority over the entity being named. At its best, this is perceived as benevolent power for the purpose of stewarding the natural world. At its worst, humans have misappropriated this directive to ravage land through strip mining, poach African elephants near extinction for the valuable tusks, and have erased hundreds of plant species in massive deforestation projects around the world. Most concerning is the misperception by some that a conquest of nature is a normative derivative of Christian theology. And yet, the biblical text overflows with praise for the beauty of creation and portrays creation's own worship of the Creator. For First Nations peoples, the connection to nature is familial, as we refer to Mother Earth and call the animals, plants, and rocks our relatives. The K underscores the practical application of humanity's reciprocal relationship with nature as he states. This calling of creation into our is an imagery of substance, but it is more than that, because it describes a relationship of love and faithfulness between human persons and creation. This unity as interdependence and also connectivity of all of life. Second, another key dissimilarity between the two cosmologies is the function of the origin tale in its unity. For the Jewish and Christian tradition, Genesis 1:2 constructs a major tenet of the belief system and establishes the ontological nature of the created world once and for all. On this basis, in the beginning is the beginning of history of divine interaction with humanity, that we understand God to have been pre-existent. Further, the creation story of Genesis foregrounds the ultimate power and complete authority of Israel's God. In contrast, there's not a single cosmological story that represents the beliefs of all Native Americans, nor is there uniformity about the name or the disposition of the sacred other. The starting point for indigenous origin tales begins well after the Genesis narrative, as most tribal traditions assume the pre-existence of humans in other worlds prior to the arrival in this current cosmos. The spiritual essence in all creation endeavors to achieve a posture of respect for all humanity, animate and inanimate relatives in this world, rather than set the foundation for a comprehensive belief system. With different prescribed functions, these cosmologies accomplish different, though at times similar, goals. Since the Genesis 1:2 account is a foundational tenet of the Judeo-Christian faith, the perspective that creation is a mere backdrop of the human play presses on the differences between humanity and the other creatives. In its very DNA of its religious structure, this cosmology emphasizes the relationship between the divine and humanity, without a particular focus on harmony with land, spirit, and elements. In its best expression, the scope of human freedom is constrained within the parameters of accountability to the Creator. But in our lived experience, creation bears the scars of humanity's unregulated propensity to exploit the beauty of this world guided by anthropocentric priorities. Third, another key difference between Christian and indigenous cultures is the priority of time or place. For Christians, especially Americans, time is the measure of God's plan on earth with respect to humanity. Christianity begins with an origin story set explicitly within the night-day, 6-day structure in which time is the framing element. However, Native American origin narratives center spatiality and emphasize the action of the Great Spirit in the natural elements of a specific location. In the Sky Woman tale, the Great Spirit removed the specific tree and the animals created land for the Sky Woman on which to land. The time of her fall, however, is completely ambiguous. For First Nations peoples, the sacredness of the land is reflective. It calls us to meditate. It's also revelatory. through the manifestation of holy places in all of earth's wisdom. In addition to what we have already noted previously, this dissimilarity finds application in the sense of urgency about earth's condition. The Christian tradition's emphasis on time may increase pressure to act immediately in response to contemporary ecological disasters, but it also may decrease our felt obligation to participate due to the minimal connection to the land. By comparison, the impulse of the First Nations communities to caretake the tribal land is high in the priority of the place, but immediacy may fall into the background in routine observances of the agricultural seasons. In conclusion, our pursuit of harmony with nature is enhanced by reading the creation narrative of Genesis 1-2 with consideration of ancestral wisdom found in the First Nations Earth's diverse stories. Balance with Mother Earth and her creatures comes to fruition as the perception of an anthropocentric world is transformed to reciprocity. This movement leads us to operate with gratitude as recipients of the Earth's good gifts and question our demand for needs that may actually just be wants in this hedonistic treadmill of consumption. In consideration of our human privilege and broader communities of respect, Native American elders frequently state that we two-leggeds alone seem to be confused about our responsibility towards the whole. The beloved poet, womanist, and interdisciplinary scholar Bell Hooks reflected on her passion to protect the beauty of her native Kentucky, as she stated in her book, Belonging, A Culture of Place. I'm going to share this with you. We have much to learn as inhabitants, as witnesses to this environment. Like the indigenous Native Americans who peopled the Americas before the rest of us, if we listen, nature will teach us. However, if we think of natural landscapes that surround us as simply blank slates existing for humans to act upon them according to our will, then we cannot exist in life-sustaining harmony with the earth. We cannot proudly declare, like the biblical psalmist, that I will lift up my eyes on the hills from whence will come help. As we observe fires destroying thousands of acres in Maui's tropical beauty, we solemnly witness a 69% decline in global biodiversity between 1970 and 2018 alone. See 416 tons of plastic production in 2019 alone wash up on our coastlands and through our oceans, and participate in disposing of 1.3 billion pounds of food waste in America, while food insecurity leaves 800 million people in a state of severe malnutrition. How might we write our path to appreciate the beauty and plentiful world of our ancestors entrusted to us, and thoughtfully leave a legacy of abundance and splendor to our descendants? In solidarity, we can strive for what Cherokees call home. Living in harmony with nature, nurturing reciprocity, holding respect, and bearing a spirit of calmness. The pursuit of Tohi will necessarily alter our living patterns to consider the implications of our decodings on creation. For First Nations peoples, reciprocity is fundamental to all human participation in world balancing and maintaining harmony. Practically, it leads us to actions such as offering prayers of gratitude for the plants that we cultivated, reducing our waste, recycling, planting sources we harvest to minimize our negative impact, protecting sacred spaces and treasuring beauty as we listen from our ancestors, preventing the destruction of Mother Earth as well as her flora and fauna kin in the name of greed, and valuing all our human relatives by advocating for their welcome in this land that we all share. If we consider the planet as Mother Earth and other creatives as our relatives, we are moved to a type of action that is beyond a mere indigenous environmentalism. We're obligated by family love and an appreciation of our kinship to mitigate the anthropogenic contributions that have wounded our mother and our relatives. As a result, obligation to each other and creation is not segregated from the practical reality of lifestyle choices that impact our environment. Myths such as the Sky Woman find direct resonance in how we treat our pets and care about access to clean water and boats. Though the creation stories may have elements of fantasy, the principles instilled by their telling implicate engagement in our environmental reality. At times, Christians have been conflicted in determining an ethic of creativeness due to the inherent danger of creating autonomies between the implications drawn from the gospel and the context of the gospel itself. Yet we are invited to make thoughtful modifications to our style of living to benefit nature in recognition of our own creativeness, practical application of the good news of the gospel. Simply states, the image of living on the earth in harmony with creation, and therefore creator, is a helpful image for me. It means that faithful living on the earth will be moving in the rhythm of creation. As we pursue harmony with nature, not only honor the origin stories of our ancestors, but we also honor creator for our efforts of sustainability and conservation. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. Now we'll have a short response from Boaz Johnson. Boaz is a professor of Hebrew, Biblical and Theological Studies here at North Park University. Growing up in New Delhi, India, he grew up well versed in the Hindu faith tradition before encountering Christ, Yesu Messiah, did I say that right? Through a copy of the Gospel of John. He received his BA in economics at Hansraj College, University of Delhi, and his Master of Divinity at Union Biblical Seminary in Pune. He furthered his studies in the U.S., receiving both a THM and PhD from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. And he has been at North Park for 20 years this year, I saw, and is also the honorary head of Department of Advanced Theological Studies at SHUATS, or SHUATS University in Prayagraj, India. So we turn it now to Boaz.
Something am I supposed to be doing that? Goodness. Okay.
I think just say continue.
Well, continue. This next one.
Yeah, just say
Wait. Slideshow. I'm going to say. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Amy, for that amazing, brilliant paper. Thank you for calling our attention to this very, very important issue about creation care. I would like to say that perhaps we should entitle this whole symposium as Creation Here. Creation Here through the voices and the songs of our sisters and brothers, our Native American sisters and brothers, because I think that's so very crucial. For too long, we have silenced the voices of people, and this is all over the world. I myself come from what is termed as a tribal Indian community. My maternal grandfather was in the border area in the hills between India and Pakistan, and that's where the tribal people live who have become Christian but are abused by both Hindus and Muslims and used as those that will transfer narcotics from one side of the border to another, and they're the ones that are killed. And I didn't know this about my paternal grandmother, but I knew that my grandfather from my father's side came from an outcast family, but what I did not know is that his mother was a tribal person from South India. I only found out about that when I went for his funeral, spent the last week with him, singing songs that I knew he liked, but I didn't know that he was himself a tribal person. He did that from me. I wish I had sung him songs that my maternal grandfather taught me as I sat on his lap, because he always said to me, remember these songs. And so I want to go a step further, Amy, and say that the concerns that you have raised about us listening to the voices of our Native American sisters and brothers, which you brought so well in your paper, I'm going to request that we listen to the voices of Aboriginal people, tribal people, all over the world. For too long, I think Western missions has squelched those voices. And what I want to suggest here is that if only we listen to those voices, we will understand our Bible better. We will understand our Hebrew text better, our Aramaic text better, our Greek text better, because those are the people who listen clearly and listen well. And they speak in broken language, they speak in broken English, they speak in thoughts that seem so distant from us. But if only we would do that, we would be better people. So thank you for enabling us to listen to some of these voices in your paper. The issues that tribal people deal with, I'm not going to read all of this, is going way back into history, where the ancient Aryans came into India and destroyed the Indus Valley civilization and just shoved these dear people, my forebearers, my great-great-grandparents, into hills. And that's where they live in poverty, because only people that exist, according to the ancient Aryan texts, the Rig Veda and the laws of Manu are those people who come from that domain of people's groups. So don't listen to the voices of these people saying the present day structure of India. And to this day, I go back to my students who are, a lot of them are tribal people from northeastern hills, tribal people from South India. I tell them, listen to the voices of your parents and grandparents, and that will enable you to understand the scriptures. Don't listen to what the Western society brings to you, because it hides what is there in the text that is in keeping with what your great-grandparents and parents observed. So let me give you some of these songs that my grandfather taught me. This is an Adivasi song about identity. Here's how it goes. And the translation there, I haven't sung the whole thing, is take heart, we were born in Kiwi, which is this original land, which is this mountain remember that our identity emerges from Kipiri. Our refuge is in Ojakaman. Our success is in Harata. The success of our tribal clans is in Veda. We also hold your heads high up, no matter what Hinduism does to you. Hold your heads up because we emerged from this land and our identity is in this land. So do you hear the same voices that our Native American sisters and brothers are asking us to observe? A couple of more songs I want to bring before you. Here is one which goes like this. Looking maneva, looking manave, which essentially is a broad translation of it. It is listen to the waters, listen to the child of man. Oh, tell me where I will keep you, oh, where. So very similar as you so very clearly brought up in your paper. It has to do with the water. It has to do with the birds. It has to do with the animals. And there is a continuity of the relationship. So you don't see the hierarchy as we see it in how it is interpreted in the history of Western Christianity or Western Ashkenazi Jewish Christianity. When my students go into their communities in this PhD program, they would sing those songs and read the scriptures, Genesis 1 and 2, and ask the women in particular, explain to us. And you do not see the hierarchy at all. You see this continuity that we as human beings emerge from all this creation and the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. And we don't find our full identity unless we understand ourselves as emerging from all that. And so we hear all that. We listen to those voices so that we would find our true relationship with God. And of course, there's different names that I use for God in the songs. And the crab and the alligator and the whale and the crocodile and the tortoise, all that is found in these songs. It's so powerful. A little more here. It's hey, go to talk to you, the great spirits. You see that again in a lot of the songs that are found in Native American communities. You find those among the Aboriginals. Implore him for sanctuary, implore him for clothes, child of man. Oh, tell me where I will keep you, where, oh, where. This is another song that I won't sing, but here's the translation. There was no water in the sky. There was no soil on the earth. Truly the earth was chaos. The air lifted the water up into the sky, and the mother God lifted the soil up. Thus the earth was properly arranged. Now this all is very, very different from high caste Hindu literature. And it's very different from how Christian theology has been explained to Indian Christians in seminaries in India. Another song here. In the beginning was the earth was marshy. How could the earth become dry? To make the marshy land dry, God, the bird king, created the air. With a hard blowing air, it became dry. So you have bird king, you have animal kings, and all of those are co-creators. Genesis 1 and 2. It's fascinating to see the continuity of my people. The body is soil, the life is there, the water of the spring of life overflows. The daylight goes out, we turn to soil. The water of the spring of life also sinks into the earth. I want to give you one more song and then I'll stop here and make a couple of comments here. A lot of these have to do with weddings. Wedding ceremony is where my communities remember creation. So here it is. Come all Adivasis, Aborigines, people who are very treated, mistreated, snakes and frogs, we all together. Come you down use the bridegroom with your shining clothes, the parted hair, come flocks of cattle, flocks of goats, we all together will celebrate this wedding. Ours the Rajya, this is the kingdom, though it's destroyed. We have one who wants it, who takes it. We won't yield. We will fight. Come to the Manda, the great wedding, creation garden. Those are the voices of Aborigines in India. And if only we would listen to the voices of Native Colombians, to the Aborigines of Australia, to the Maori voices, we would know our people, and we would not talk about creation here, but we would talk about creation here. I think that's what the Psalms talk about, isn't it? I don't see that emerging in me. The dichotomy between Genesis 1 and 2 and the voices of the Native American people is our understanding of Genesis 1 and 2. The native Aboriginal Indians, my people, will say, no, I don't see any dichotomy. I don't see any discontinuity. This is the God I want to follow. Issues that you've raised in your paper, including naming. Naming for us is entering into a relationship. It is not top-down. It is, I want to enter into a relationship with you, alligator, with you, Carlos, or whatever the song talks about. It is the dissimilarities are of our Western creation. And there's one more thing I would say. I think as I view Genesis 1 and 2 from the perspective of native Aboriginal people, I see the Hebrew text emerge very differently. Let me give you a couple of examples here. And the mother God, the Spirit was hovering over the face of the waters. Genesis 1 and 2. And therefrom emerged. And in the voice of God, it says, come, waters, be co-creators with me. Genesis 1 and 9. Genesis 1 and 11. Vayomer Elohim Kacheh Haaretz Deshe. Come, earth, be co-creator with me. And then, of course, the famous passage, Genesis 1:26, is the voice which says, let us. Who is that us? The Aboriginal Indian will say that's all of creation. Let us make human beings. And that is so free, isn't it? Thank you.
Thank you, Buzz. We'll switch places here, and I invite you. I want anything, so she said, great question. So I'm going, and we'll take a few extra minutes. We started a little late, and we built in time because Nathan knew. So if you have a question, please come to the mic. And we will try to use the mic just for the sake of Zoom. And if we can't, if you need, we'll have a runner too. And if you're online, you can write it in Zoom, and I have mine open while I ask. So.
Very much, Amy. Really appreciate that. I make comments, 3 points, and things, and ask a question that connects to the comments we just had a while ago. So I did not challenge in my paper the language of rule over, efficiency over, but Ellen Davis and points out that the preposition of can be among. Exercise power among the animals and in the earth.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, works very well, because I don't think it's any sort of absolute power. It's one kind of power among others. That's the first point.
Well, I just want to say I'm glad you brought Allan into the room, because
Then, Genesis 1 needs to be connected to the other creation texts in the Bible, like Psalm 4, where humans are mentioned 3 times in the Psalm. Each time they're mentioned, they appear to be the cattle, lions, or the leviathan. They never appear under those periods some other creature that also has a relationship with God and agency. And then there's Job 38, 40, of course, where God appears to these animals that Job has no knowledge of, and God makes rain fall on the land and no one lives, because it's not for human benefit. So there's all that stuff that modifies how I would read Genesis 1 and 2, about the language of what you have said. So it's not how you perceive this language and what other texts you read in relationship to. So the question is, do you read these texts in contrast to the other traditions, or do you look for a coherence among them? And you try to do a little bit of both.
right, yeah.
So here's my question to you, and it's a question that you ponder. Does your very language, how you describe this, betray an anthropocentric priority? Because it's the way you use the word creation. Humanity and creation, humanity over creation, humanity below creation. But aren't humans part of creation? How can the category of creation be distinct from the category of human? Just wondering how you're affected.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. Yeah, in regards to, we certainly are part of the large collection of creatives. And so therefore, in the creator creation distinction, we're here and not in the category of creator. In using Genesis 1-2 exclusively, just because I was doing comparative to the origin, this is part of a bigger project where I'm actually pulling some of the others that you mentioned, and even like in the larger project, pulling in simple things like Proverbs 6, where hey, lazy person, look at the ant. So there's calls for us to attend to it. So how the biblical text is not aware or not respectful towards what we can learn. So I appreciate that. In the exclusive of Genesis 1-2, it sets it up differently than the American cosmologies in pressing further into the distancing between humanity as a special, different type of creature, created being, than all of the rest of creation. And those rule and reign, the function of that being very distinct, in that the rocks or the chickens are not asked to do that. And so there's a distinction made there. And so that's what I was drawing on in this paper, and that in Native American, that pressing against is not quite as prominent. And actually, like in the tale that I read at the beginning, we see salvific type believers sacrifices his life on behalf of the Sky Woman. And so there's really interesting weaving of elements that we don't have in the biblical origin story. And then that changes our disposition. This is our starting place, where do we go from there? Many of the key things that you brought up are part of the larger project, and so I sectioned off the Genesis 1-2 part of the figure, but very valid. And you can't take an entire theological stance based on one exclusive. So I would harmonize it across the entire scriptural witness. So those are really good and valid points.
Back to the
Yeah.
last point.
Yeah.
The language.
Mhm.
The reason I don't interpretation here.
Yeah. Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
very.
Right. And within the realm of that you're not the Christ, you're not cared for. Right. So, but you can do your part where you are located, and in, the realms of history of influence and financial voting and your actual yard and, those types of things, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a place where we can, get overwhelmed because there's so much to do. And yet we can take joy in that, what a delight that Creator has invited us, into this participation. I don't use patient here, either. From a more reciprocity. That's good.
Wondering if you have any reflections on the gender dynamics that happen in different creation narratives, and just even thinking about, do you have any reflections on the fact that it's a woman and how that might illuminate, I don't know, just thinking like there's obviously a particular feminine relationship to creation as women have an ability to create life with men don't have. And so I'm just wondering if you think if there's anything to do with that and the way women show up in the different creation narratives you study.
Yeah, Elizabeth. Yeah, Elizabeth just hit on. A jump, yes. I have thought about that. On that, I'm very interested in the gendered language that Sky, the beginning of the story. Beginning, the Great Spirit is to meet us in the male way, and Sky Woman is obviously female, and then the animals are not spoken of in what gender they are, not identified in that way, and so the way that gender shows up and brings meaning and respect for different functions and things that each bring to the table is really, really an interesting point. The naming piece in Genesis, there's been a lot on that in regards to, it looks like you're knowing about it. So how that would be in conversation with Native American stories. And there are other, countless Native American stories, and so this is not the only one, and this is not the only way that origin stories are told in our culture. There is a common theme of Mother Earth in this respect that all of life flourishes and comes from that, and with the difference of the hierarchy and the reciprocity, then like our disposition of if it's more in distance from us, it changes. Even if we're being really benevolent and really faithful and aligning with the Creator's desire, it's a little bit of a different disposition than if it's our mother, and if the rock was our sister or brother, and if that dove, and so it I think changes on it, and kinship is a major theme, and certainly that pulls into gender relations as well. And yeah, there's more I can say about leadership functions for men and women in tribal relationships and those types of things as well.
A question, sorry. I'm thinking too about biblical interpretation, one's view of the Bible and how it would change. It seems like often an evangelical view in a certain way in which Scripture is viewed, whether it's inerrancy or makes it more difficult sometimes to challenge Genesis 1 and 2 in kind of fundamental ways, where we have to play kind of language games.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you can reflect on that, and does that shut us down to too narrow of an interpretation or too narrow of a lens to actually kind of take these critiques? Or
No, I appreciate that so much. Yeah, just speaking for me personally, because I have a high view of Scripture, because I do believe it is good news, and because it is able to teach us and, admonish us and good for reproof and teaching, all those things, it then requires me to navigate the nitty-gritty. It would be so much easier to take figures to it. Like, this is too hard. This is really complicated. I mean, my doctoral research that I'm working on right now, coming from an abuse background, I'm working on Hosea 2. And what is this depiction of God? As it looks like an abuse cycle, and what we would, define psychologically today in studies of the wounding and the hurting and so I would prefer Hosea 2 or not in the Bible. I would really prefer that. I don't have that choice. And so for me, because I have a high view of Scripture, I'm going to need to navigate this. And I stand firmly that it has something to do with this. Now, what is it? That's the question. And what filters, and then harmonizing across the entire biblical witness. And so I would not base, this is just a section of a much larger project, but hey, we're talking about, creation. Let's go Genesis 1, 2, and compare it, a beginning story with another beginning story. But I wouldn't state all of my theology on one section of Scripture, taken to mean to the nice big one. So yeah, and being a bit of a Episcopalian, I would misread the position. Another complicated, interesting thing, being in the ordination process, the Episcopal Church historically has a lot to read and repent of in our relations with Native American people. So that's quite an interesting piece of my story as well. But yeah, no, you're totally right. But I'm required, for me, I feel a sense of obligation, and I believe that it's valid to do that for it.
Thanks for the thoughtful session. And my question is a clarification. Is when you're comparing and contrasting the Native American myths with the Genesis 22, how much of it are you comparing this just to what I was saying? How much are you comparing the Native stories to what I might read as ancient Near Eastern creation myths versus the Western theological tradition around Genesis 1-2? And here I think I've been influenced heavily by Native American theologians like Randy Whitley, the Theological Seminary, who sees much more resonance the fact that there are two creation myths, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Right. They come from tribal cultures. There is a place, Eden, that's positive. That other elements of creation are given ruling powers, like the sun and the moon. Other parts of creation have mandates to build and bless creation. And reading Genesis as humans created last as a sense of dependency as opposed to hierarchy. Yeah. And I don't always know how to sort out those, but I'm just wondering how you're coming at that.
Yeah. Can you rephrase at the very beginning when you asked me more of
Sure.
the
Clarification. Yeah, comparing and contrasting the Native American creation myths as opposed to Genesis 1 and 2 as a ancient Near Eastern, indigenous creation myth, or the Western tradition?
Yeah, so if we look at the Numa Elite or other ancient, I'm doing work in ancient Near Eastern iconography, so looking at cultural materials and all those help us see how ancient Near Eastern believers of Israel defined and understood their sense of being here in this world and like they got here. I want to see clearly that I'm not anti-American, anti-Western interpretation. I think the Imago Dei, all of us, is rich and developed, and listening is important, but for us to listen to indigenous peoples, I don't have to not listen to others. And I want to be very attentive and careful about that. And my belief that all are valid and valued in the eyes of God, and so I uphold that. And then holding that in tension with, I do think you're spot on that there are a lot of resonances between indigenous cultures and ancient Near Eastern ways of being, a more communal sense. And so there's individual, a lot of patterns of ritual, agricultural connections in the communities for those who are based on seasons and growing and the animals and times of day and looking at those types of things. So I think that is definitely a place where there's a lot of residents actually. And just kind of as an aside, working on the First Nations version right now, we're in the Old Testament. And so it's actually interesting how much overlap actually of cultural and textual language works really well between indigenous peoples and ancient. So yeah, no, I think that's very valuable.
We have one or two more questions.
You talked about how origin story impacts identity. And so I'd love you to just talk a little bit more about that and maybe how your identity and how you see yourself as changed if you've kind of done this work and or how you've seen this impact other people's sense of themselves.
Yeah, my own sense of identity. I am Native American from multiple tribes, Cherokee, Choctaw, and Tuscarora, a little bit from my dad's side, and mostly from my mother's side. And I grew up all over. I don't have there's so much, but for the longest period of time that I ever lived was in Central New York, near my Italian populations. And sadly, my family of origin was very ashamed and wanting to hide our indigenous background, and assimilation was key. And so if my friends in track thought I tanned really well, even though I was Italian, my parents told me to go with it. And so I did not grow up learning. I did for my great grandmother before she passed away. She would tell me loads and loads of stories. But my family of origin, my parents did not pass along the language, did not pass along stories, the traditions, the rituals, all of that, which I'm now recovering and passing on to my children. Hopefully, so I'm learning native languages right now. I incorporating Native American practices in my sense of spirituality. And that has been taking on things that have been lost. I'm not the only person who can do that. It's actually a very common story with miscarriages and wanting to keep the blood down with indigenous people so that inheritance of property, according to broken trees and those types of things. Residential schools, hopefully on the side of our peoples. those types of things, are things we mourn and things that we still are. I mean, Kamloops, the hundreds of children found unmarked grave there just happened. And there are more, to be found. And so, it's an evolving process of identity and connection with others, in the community, and wanting to be respectful, yet not full of bitterness in my heart, and to have openness to all people, that if my ancestors is different as a result. Like, so I think it informs and it can inform positively, and I'm still learning and growing in that, but that's my heart, for that, in that regard. Does that come to that your reaction?
I just want to say thank you for sharing your perspective and where you came from, because I can't relate to where you're manifesting, because it's hard, and maybe some people don't understand that when we were the oppressed people, and that, you know, we were forced to take on other identities, and then we lost our own, you know, and then when you come into your soul, it's a wonderful thing. And thank you for expressing that, and God bless you. No question.
I think we have one more, we'll take this last question and then.
Yeah, no. So, I just want to know, you know, the thoughts behind this, reality at all. I surrounded you yesterday about our pursuit of congregation. Is this really possible without individuals and communities that are whole? One, particular of our communities, evidence of our spiritual mission and lack of. People that's pretty low,
I think the Spirit indwells us and empowers us to do amazing things in the name of Christ. And so I do think it's possible. I do think that it makes not only action, but pause to repent and to reflect on how our communities have created the situation that we're in today. But I don't think that is hopeless. I think we have hope in Christ, and I think we're empowered by the Spirit to do so. And that there's the great day awaits when it will all be right. But we have the joy of today participating. And we might not be able to fix all of the problems, but we can do what we're called to do today. And listening well to the Spirit's direction of being in the community, I think those are all pieces that went into it, right? Relationship at heart.
Well, let's give a hand to. Presentation today, and I believe we're at Olson, or where is there?
Participants.
Okay.
Then we'll reconvene at 1.
Yep, so reconvening at 1, until then.
Okay, thank you.